Well, what do you need to undertake your miniSASS sampling? Clearly, there's a minimum set of requirements. First thing being a net. So nets come in all shapes and sizes. The top of the range net is possibly the SAS 5 net. It's this chap here. It has an aluminium frame, aluminium handle. It's nice and light. It's got a bumper bar around it to protect the net. It has a very standard 30 centimeters by 30 centimeter frame opening, which gives us a square, and it has a 1 millimeter pore size, very precise, only 1 millimeter, not less or not more, and that's the standard SAS 5 net. Something at the other end of the spectrum, much cheaper, something you could make yourself, between 30 to 50, maybe up to 100 Rand, depending on how and what you buy, would be something I'll show you now. The first thing you need is some netting, and for that you could pop off to your local hardware store, get some mosquito netting or material shop. Mosquito netting, relatively inexpensive, nylon, lasts a fair amount of time. Take your mosquito netting, sew yourself up a small bag, get a friend or a mother or a colleague or a tailor, sew up a small bag like this, which would be a function of the size of the opening you want, bearing in mind the standard is 30 by 30. You could get yourself a cheap wire coat hanger like this and simply bend it into shape, quite easily bent, and before you know it, there's your frame of your net, and use that to attach your early constructed netting onto, and then get yourself a stick of some description. Could be a broom handle or just a stick that you find in the field somewhere. Then attach the net frame to the broom handle. We have some clips which can be tightened onto the broom handle and secured, and there we have our very cheap, under 50 Rand miniSASS net. And the in-betweener is this chap here. Again, an aluminium pole, a metal frame, aluminium frame, could be mild steel. Plasticized netting here, more robust, lasts longer. Still with a bumper bar on it to protect the net, and with that you'll go a long way and will have many hours of fun pottering around in the river. So there we are, we've got our net. What else do we need? Well, you can imagine we've gone down to the river, we've collected our sample, bring it up. What do we look at it in? The cheap version, easily accessible, low cost, for free, would be something like this. An ice cream tub, nice white ice cream tub ideally, to keep the light in there. Our sample in our net, up from the river, tip the sample into the net. A bucket of clean water, and then just flush it through, dislodging the aquatic insects that are sticking to the net, checking the net at the end, making sure nothing's left behind, and there's our sample. What might work slightly, if you have a bit more resources, you could extend yourself to a tray like this, again tipping the net out, putting the sample into here, and this is just simply the base of a white flower pot holder, relatively inexpensive again. These can come in all shapes and sizes, could be square, could be deeper, doesn't really matter as long as you've got a clear white container to put your sample into and look at your organisms. What will help perhaps are a pair of forceps, fine forceps, and these are relatively easily accessible from a chemist or somewhere. A pair of forceps, a little sucker to help suck up things, small insects that you might want to look at in more detail. A sucker, You can modify that sucker with a little piece of netting on the end to help scoop up organisms, catch them, put them on your hand and to have a look at. How would you look at them? A little jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, very useful, on your hand, and looking at the organisms and the features with a small magnifying glass, again useful tools in your tools of your trade. You may on occasion find an insect that you don't know how to identify, you're not sure what it is, you want to take it back. Very useful to have a few pill vials, 10-20 ml pill vials that you can screw off, put your sample inside, cap it and take it and let somebody else help you identify it if you're not sure on something. What about identification? Well, the miniSASS sheet, the kit that comes with that is obviously how to sample and so on in there, but inside, identification guide for all the main groups that occur in miniSASS, flatworms, the crabs and shrimps and so on. They're all on the sheet. On the back of that sheet is a very useful little key that helps you work your way down until you found the particular thing that you're looking for. For those of you who really get interested and want to know more, well, there's this booklet, the Aquatic Invertebrates of South Africa, and there's an illustrated guide to those. So within that would be much more detail on the different organisms that we would be looking at in the water. So we're ready to go. Our samples in our tray, we've had our net, we've sampled them, planted in the tray, and we're ready to record on the back of our miniSASS sheet what we found. We can identify them using the miniSASS guides and additional guides as we find them and as they're available. The other additional thing that's really useful, not essential but really useful, is a simple ice cube tray, relatively cheap, available in most homes. So what this allows you to do is, once you've got your insects floating around in your tray, you can pick individuals up and plonk them into the ice cube tray for looking at later in more detail. So initially you might want to sort through the tray, collect different representative organisms, plonk them into the ice cube tray to look at, perhaps with a magnifying glass in greater detail later, just to see what features they might have and help with the identification of those.